The room fell completely silent the moment the offer was announced. Muhammad Ali, the most famous fighter on the planet, had just been offered 200 million by King Faisal. Not a joke. Not a rumor. A real offer from a king. The kind of money that could change generations. The kind of money most people would accept without even thinking twice. But Ali didn't move. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He didn't even look impressed. Instead, he just sat there, calm, focused, almost like he was in the middle of a fight, studying his opponent. Because to him, this wasn't just about money. It was something much bigger. Around him, the royal court watched closely. Advisors whispered. Some were already nodding, assuming the deal was done. After all, who says no to 200 million? Especially to a king. One of the men leaned in and quietly said, "Champ, this is more than an opportunity. This is history." Ali slowly lifted his eyes, but there was no excitement in them, only thought, only purpose. Then he asked one simple question, "What exactly do you want me to do?" That question changed everything. Because the answer he received would put him in a position no one expected. A position where he had to choose between unimaginable wealth and something far more powerful, his beliefs. The room held its breath. Some people felt the tension immediately. Others still believed this would end in a handshake, a smile, and a headline-making deal. But they didn't know Muhammad Ali. This was the same man who had already sacrificed his heavyweight title, his career, and years of his life for what he believed was right. Money had never controlled him before, and it wasn't about to start now. What happened next didn't just shock the king, it shocked the entire world. Because in a moment where anyone else would have said yes, Muhammad Ali was about to do the unthinkable. The meeting had been planned for weeks. Inside a grand royal hall, everything was prepared with precision. The marble floors gleamed under golden chandeliers, and the atmosphere carried a quiet sense of importance. This wasn't just another meeting, it was history in the making. At the center of it all sat King Faisal, a leader known for his vision, discipline, and deep respect for influential figures across the world. And on this day, his attention was focused on one man, Muhammad Ali. Ali wasn't just a boxer anymore. He was a global icon, a man whose voice carried weight far beyond the ring. His words inspired millions. His actions sparked conversations. He stood for something, and people listened. That's exactly why this meeting mattered. King Faisal didn't just admire Ali's talent, he respected his influence. In a world rapidly changing, powerful voices like Ali's could shape opinions, movements, and even history itself. So when Ali entered the hall, calm and composed, all eyes turned toward him. There were no flashy entrances, no loud announcements, just presence. He greeted the king with respect, and the two sat across from each other. Between them lay a polished table, and on it, a document that would soon change the tone of the entire room. A contract, thick, official, prepared in advance. One of the royal advisors stepped forward, carefully opening the file. His voice was steady, but the weight of his words was undeniable. "Your Majesty has prepared a special opportunity," he said, glancing briefly at Ali before continuing. "A global campaign, one that will reach millions across continents." Ali listened quietly, his expression unchanged. Then came the number, $200 million. The words seemed to echo through the hall. Some of the people present shifted slightly, as if even hearing the amount created pressure. Others exchanged quick glances. This wasn't just a deal. It was an offer that very few people in the world would ever receive. For a moment, no one spoke. Because in that silence, an assumption had already been made that the answer would be yes. Why wouldn't it be? This wasn't just money. It was security, expansion, legacy, power. It was everything the world taught people to chase. But Ali didn't react the way they expected. He didn't lean forward eagerly. He didn't ask about payment details. He didn't even touch the contract. Instead, he simply looked at it, then back at the advisor, and finally toward the king, calm, focused, present. It was the kind of silence that made people uncomfortable. Because it meant he was thinking. Really thinking. The advisor, sensing the pause, added quickly, "This partnership will align your name with a powerful global message. Your influence will grow even further." That line caught attention. A message. Ali's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in curiosity. Because for him, that word mattered more than the money. He had never been the kind of man to attach his name to something blindly. Every move he made, every stand he took, came from a place of belief. And now, sitting in front of one of the most powerful offers of his life, he realized something important. This wasn't just a business deal. It was a test of what he truly stood for. The room waited. The king remained composed, observing quietly. The advisor stood still, expecting progress. And in the middle of it all, Muhammad Ali prepared to ask a question that would shift everything. A simple question. but one that would turn a 200 million opportunity into a moment the world would never forget. The silence in the room grew heavier with every passing second. Muhammad Ali leaned back slightly in his chair, his eyes still fixed on the contract resting on the table. The number alone was enough to shake most people, 200 million. But Ali wasn't most people. He finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Before I say anything, I need to understand something." The advisors immediately straightened. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. Ali looked directly at them and asked, "What exactly do you want me to promote?" It sounded like a simple question. But in that moment, it changed the entire energy of the room. The lead advisor hesitated for just a fraction of a second, almost unnoticeable, but enough for someone like Ali to catch. Then he cleared his throat and began to explain. "This campaign," he said, "is designed to influence global perception. It will reach millions of people across different countries. With your voice, your face, and your reputation, it will carry unmatched credibility." Ali didn't interrupt. He just listened, carefully. The advisor continued, going into more detail now, explaining the messaging, the branding, the narrative they wanted to build. On the surface, it sounded powerful, strategic, well planned. But the deeper he spoke, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a campaign. It was something that required Ali to stand behind ideas that didn't align with who he was, ideas that contradicted the very principles he had spent his life defending. Ali's expression didn't change immediately. But inside something shifted. He had been in moments like this before, moments where the world tried to pull him in one direction while his beliefs pulled him in another. He remembered the criticism, the sacrifices, the battles he fought outside the ring. He remembered losing everything and still standing firm. So now, sitting in this royal hall, faced with more money than most people could imagine, the real question wasn't about the offer. It was about the cost. Not the financial cost, the personal one. The advisor finished speaking, confident in his presentation. To him, this was an easy decision. No one walks away from this kind of opportunity. The room went quiet again. All eyes turned back to Ali. Some expected him to smile, some expected him to negotiate, some expected him to accept immediately. But Ali didn't do any of that. Instead, he lowered his gaze for a moment, as if weighing everything in silence. Then he looked up again, this time, directly toward King Faisal. There was no disrespect in his eyes, only honesty. "You're offering me a lot," Ali said slowly. "A lot of money, a lot of influence." He paused. "But what you're asking me to stand for?" The sentence didn't finish right away. Because in that pause, the entire room could feel the tension rising. One of the advisors leaned forward slightly, trying to ease the moment. "Champ," he said, "this is bigger than personal opinions. This is about impact, about legacy." Ali turned his head slightly toward him. "My legacy," he replied quietly, "is already built on what I believe." That line hit harder than anyone expected. You could feel it. Some of the men in the room shifted uncomfortably. Others exchanged glances. This wasn't going the way they had planned. The advisor tried again, this time with a different angle. "Think about what this could do for you, your future, your family." Ali gave a faint smile. Not of agreement, but of understanding. "I've already risked my future for my beliefs," he said. "I've already lost titles, money, years of my career, and I didn't change then." Now the room was completely still, because they were starting to realize something important. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a line, and Ali was standing right on it. The contract still lay untouched on the table. 200 million within reach. But at the same time, further away than ever. Ali leaned forward slightly now, placing his hands together. "I don't go against what I believe in," he said, his voice steady. "No matter who's asking, and no matter how much is offered." The words didn't come with anger. They didn't come with arrogance. They came with certainty, and that made them even more powerful. For the first time since the meeting began, doubt entered the room. Not doubt about Ali, but doubt about the outcome everyone had assumed. Because now it was clear there was a real possibility that Muhammad Ali was about to walk away from 200 million. The air inside the hall had completely changed. What started as a confident, controlled meeting was now filled with a quiet, growing tension. No one spoke immediately after Muhammad Ali's last words. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Calm, certain, unshaken. The kind of tone that doesn't leave room for negotiation. Across the table, King Faisal remained still, his expression composed, but his eyes observant. He wasn't a man easily surprised, yet even he could sense that this moment was no longer about business. It had become something deeper. One of the senior advisors finally broke the silence. He leaned forward slightly, his voice softer now, more careful. "Champ, perhaps we didn't explain it clearly enough." Ali didn't respond. He simply watched him. This opportunity, the advisor continued, is not meant to challenge your beliefs, but to expand your reach. Imagine the kind of influence you'll have, the people you can inspire, the change you can create. For a brief moment, that idea hung in the air. Influence, impact, global reach. Words powerful enough to convince almost anyone. But Ali had heard powerful words before, and he knew something most people in that room didn't. Not every opportunity that looks good is good. He shifted slightly in his seat, his posture relaxed but grounded. Influence without truth, he said slowly, is just another form of control. The sentence landed heavy. The advisor paused, clearly not expecting that response. Another man stepped in, this time more direct. His tone carried urgency now. You have to understand what's being placed in front of you, he said. This isn't just money. This is security for generations. This is power at a level very few people ever reach. Ali nodded once. I understand exactly what it is, he replied. And that was the problem, because he wasn't blinded by it. He saw it clearly, both what it offered and what it required. The advisors exchanged quick glances. The situation was slipping, so they changed tactics again. Let's not rush this, one of them said, trying to regain control. Take your time. Review the details again. There's no pressure here. But there was pressure. It filled the room. It sat in every pause. It echoed in every unspoken expectation. Ali looked down at the contract once more. Thick pages, official seals, signatures waiting to happen. For a moment, everything went quiet again. And in that silence, you could almost feel the weight of the decision pressing in. 200 million. A number that could change lives. A number that could rewrite futures. For most people, this would be the easiest yes of their life. But for Ali, it was the hardest kind of decision, the kind where saying yes would mean losing something far more valuable than money. He leaned back again, exhaling slowly. You keep talking about what I'll gain, he said. But no one's talking about what I'll lose. No one answered. Because they didn't have an answer for that. One of the younger advisors tried to speak, but hesitated. He wasn't sure how to push further without making things worse. And that hesitation said everything. Because now, the room wasn't trying to convince Ali anymore. It was trying to understand him. At the far end of the table, King Faisal finally moved slightly. Not dramatically, just enough to signal his presence again in the conversation. His gaze remained steady, thoughtful. He had seen leaders, businessmen, and public figures from all over the world. He had seen people negotiate. He had seen people hesitate. He had seen people compromise. But this was different. This was a man who wasn't negotiating for a better deal. He was deciding whether the deal deserved him at all. And that realization shifted something. Because power usually flows toward money. But in this moment, money was being forced to stand still in front of principle. Ali leaned forward one last time, his hands resting lightly on the table. His voice, when he spoke again, was quiet, but impossible to ignore. I didn't come here for money, he said, and I won't stay for it either if it costs me who I am. The words settled into the room like a final warning, not aggressive, not emotional, just real. And now, for the first time since the meeting began, everyone understood. This wasn't about convincing Muhammad Ali anymore. It was about witnessing a decision that no amount of money could change. The room remained silent for a few moments after Muhammad Ali's final words. Silence, however, was no longer tense. It had transformed into a mixture of awe, respect, and an unspoken understanding. Everyone present realized that what they had witnessed was not just a business decision, it was a lesson in integrity. King Faisal sat back, his eyes fixed on Ali. For a brief second, the weight of the offer and its rejection seemed to hang between them, heavy yet electrifying. A few of the advisors exchanged worried glances, still unsure if this meeting would end peacefully. But the king's composed gaze suggested something entirely different. Slowly he nodded, not in anger, not in frustration, but in genuine acknowledgement. He had offered the largest sum of money in a single contract most of them could ever imagine, and it had been refused. And yet, that refusal carried no disrespect, only conviction. Ali leaned slightly forward, maintaining eye contact with the king, and said, I respect your offer, and I honor your vision. But my path has always been guided by my principles. I cannot endorse what I don't believe in. It was simple, clear, honest. For a moment the room seemed to exhale collectively. The tension that had gripped every corner dissipated. The advisors who had been holding their breath now relaxed their shoulders. They realized that Muhammad Ali wasn't just a boxer. He was a man whose character defined him more than his fame or fortune. King Faisal finally spoke, his voice steady and respectful. You have a rare quality, Muhammad, he said. It is easy to be swayed by wealth or power. Few remain true to themselves. I admire your courage and your integrity. Today you have taught us all a lesson, one that money could never buy. Ali nodded in appreciation. There was no triumph in his expression, only calm humility. He had made his choice and he had stayed true to himself. That was victory enough. The advisors, inspired by Ali's conviction, now saw him in an entirely different light. They realized that respect could not be demanded or purchased. It had to be earned. And Ali had earned it completely. One of the younger advisors, overwhelmed by the moment, whispered to a colleague, "I've never seen anything like this. He just refused everything for what he believes in." Ali rose from his chair. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, and quiet. He didn't need to celebrate. His actions, his presence, and his steadfastness spoke louder than any words or gestures ever could. As he prepared to leave, King Faisal extended his hand. It was a gesture of mutual respect, not authority. "Your integrity is as powerful as your fame," the king said. "You have our highest respect." Ali shook the king's hand firmly but calmly. There was no fanfare, no flash of cameras, no public statement. The true victory was quiet, unassuming, and lasting, exactly how Ali had always conducted himself. Outside the hall, as Ali walked away, he didn't need recognition. He didn't need applause. The lesson he had left behind was already embedded in the minds of everyone who had witnessed it. It was a lesson about staying true to one's values, about recognizing that wealth and power are meaningless without character. Even after he departed, the impact of that meeting lingered. It became a story told repeatedly, not for the money he rejected, but for the principles he upheld. Ali had shown the world that greatness isn't measured by the offers you accept, but by the stands you take. And in that moment, he had cemented a legacy far beyond boxing, a legacy of integrity, courage, and unwavering self-respect. Because sometimes, the most powerful victories are the ones that don't require a single punch, only a steadfast heart. And in refusing 200 million, Muhammad Ali didn't lose anything. Instead, he gained the respect of the world, a respect far greater than any fortune could ever buy. The story didn't end when Muhammad Ali left the royal hall. In fact, in many ways, that was just the beginning. Because what he did that day wasn't about boxing. It wasn't about fame, power, or even money. It was about something far deeper, a principle that transcends wealth, status, or recognition. Ali showed the world that true strength lies not in what you can take, but in what you refuse to compromise. That refusing 200 million didn't make him weaker, it made him stronger. Stronger in character, stronger in legacy, stronger in the respect he commanded. It's easy to follow the path of convenience, to take what's offered without questioning the cost, to accept what everyone else would accept. Most people, when faced with the choice Ali had, would have said yes immediately. After all, who turns down 200 million from a king? But Ali didn't follow the easy path. He followed his conscience. And in doing so, he reminded the world of a timeless truth: money can buy comfort, influence, and luxury, but it can't buy integrity, respect, or legacy. King Faisal, a man of immense wealth and authority, recognized it. Even he understood that Ali's refusal wasn't disrespect. It was a display of inner strength that no amount of gold could match. That mutual respect forged in that moment would last far longer than any contract ever could. The lesson extends far beyond that royal hall. It's a lesson for all of us in every corner of the world. In daily life, we face countless offers, opportunities to take shortcuts, to compromise values for gain, to trade honesty for convenience. We may never be offered 200 million by a king, but we are offered decisions every day that test our integrity. Ali's example shows us what matters most: standing firm in your beliefs, even when it costs you everything. Respect isn't about wealth. Respect isn't about fame. Respect is earned by the way you treat others, the principles you uphold, and the courage to stand firm when no one is watching. Muhammad Ali's choice that day became a legend, not because of the money he refused, but because of the message he sent that character is priceless, and no fortune can ever replace it. So when life presents you with choices, whether small or monumental, remember Ali's courage. Remember that sometimes the hardest decision is the one that proves your worth the most. That saying no at the right time can define you more than saying yes ever could. Ali's refusal was not about defiance, it was about wisdom. Not about pride, it was about principle. And that is why the world still remembers it decades later. Because money can be spent, power can be fleeting, and fame can fade. But integrity lasts forever. And Muhammad Ali, he showed us all how to be truly rich, not in dollars, but in honor, respect, and unwavering principle. So today, when you face your own choices, ask yourself, what am I willing to stand for? What am I willing to refuse? Type RESPT in the comments if you believe standing by your principles is stronger than any fortune. And tell me where you're watching from. Every single kind soul deserves recognition. Remember, this true power is silent. True respect is earned, and a life lived with integrity is the greatest legacy anyone can leave.